Alright, see this t-shirt? Says, I got a flashlight in my other hand, one of my hands, 3 hands. I'm not arguing, I'm just explaining why I'm right. I mean, you know, my wife bought me this shirt because apparently that's the way I am. But I had a dream, and this is my first, you could call it an attempt, or my first narrative on this dream, because it's just so weird. So I use that term a lot. It's so weird. Weird is one of my favorite words, apparently. But anyhow, I had this dream where I had this mysterious son. He was 1 year old. I'm not including my other children, just this one, okay? But I don't have a 1-year-old son, but in the dream I did. And I went to, I took him with me somewhere. My wife wanted me to take him with me, and we were there doing whatever we were doing. And then all of a sudden he was gone. I didn't know where he was, and I was freaking out because I knew my wife would jump all over me for losing our son, you know. I think anybody would, but that was the dream. So I found this place, like Lost and Found, where there was a group of supervisors, kind of. I asked them, do you know where my son is at? And to make a long story short, we found him. I was all happy and go lucky. So we continued to do things in the dream, and then I decided to go home. So I'm walking towards home, and he's following me. Everything's fine. I'm all happy that I didn't lose my son. And then when we get close enough to home where I can see my house, I turn around and my son is gone again. I don't know where he's at, and I'm freaking out because I don't know if I lost him on the road or if he left me a long time before. So I ran all the way back to that same location where I had lost him the first time, and went to the same people, and they hadn't seen him, and I was so stressed out. And eventually we did find him, and I was all happy again. But in the dream, after the dream, but still dreaming, I was completely stressed because I was informed. This is why I'm bringing this up, because the dream is kind of like unnatural, but I was informed, which is weird. It's different than saying intuition told me. Intuition didn't tell me this. I was informed of this. So I don't know who was doing the informing, if it was from God or not. But I was informed that that child that I had lost and then found and then lost again, that child was my destiny. In other words, it was my, I wouldn't call it a reward, I would say it was promised to me, like an inheritance, temporary inheritance, meaning that when I was to pass away in this life, I would move into that body and be that little boy. And that was in jeopardy because of my affinity for wickedness or sinful things. That it was kind of a warning. If you continue doing, if you continue in your exploitation of wicked things, you won't become this little boy. That was the warning. And I was stressed about that because I wanted to be that little boy. And then when I woke up, I was still in a dream, but I woke up from that dream, and I wanted to wake my wife up and ask her if it's true we have this little boy, which is kind of weird. Who would wake your wife up and go, hey, I know we have 3 kids, but do we have 4 kids? Did I lose one of them? I mean, you already think I'm crazy, but this makes it even worse. Anyhow, that impression hit me, and that's the impression that was on me when I actually, in reality, woke up. The fact that whether or not he was real, I was relieved. Oh man, I don't have a 1-year-old son. Thank goodness for that, you know, because none of that stuff was true. But then when I started thinking about the previous incidences in that dream, the fact that I was warned about my ways, that I would not inherit that 1-year-old body. What does all that mean? It all has to do with, you might as well turn this off if you don't know what an ISBE is. I-S-B-E. Because none of this is going to make sense to you, I don't think. I don't know. But an ISBE is an immortal being who is like us, human, either a cousin or something, but they have the ability to procreate with us, aliens. Aliens are ISBEs, at least one race of them, and they were intended to be in heaven, and they were not commissioned to come down to this earth and mess with us. They were in heaven. That's where I don't know if that's where they originated, but that's where they were supposed to be. And then you had Adam down here on the earth. And they were in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve. And these guys actually came down here and disobeyed God and caused Eve to sin. Lucifer did it, but they're all involved in this. Because you have, anyways, that's who the ISBE are. And Errol, from a 1947 interview with an army nurse, spoke to the nurse for like 24 days and told her all kinds of stuff, most of which I believe is true. A couple of things are not, because Errol doesn't believe in God. Errol believes she is a god. Errol is the alien who was interviewed by this army nurse. And Errol's story goes like this really quickly, is that she's an immortal being who can go to the different planets in all sorts of dimensions and universes, and there's beings all over the place. But she informed the nurse that the nurse is also an ISBE, meaning that when the nurse dies, she doesn't really die. She just goes back to her spiritual part. She loses her flesh body, in other words, but she's not dead. However, there was war on the earth between the angel race and the alien ISBE human race. And we, the mortals on earth, were just like, what the heck is going on? And we called them Anunnaki, we called them gods, we called them all kind of things. We didn't understand who they were. And we built pyramids and created religions over all this stuff, according to Errol. And so there was procreation that went on between the ISBEs and us, the mortals. And through doing that process, we actually created Nephilim. Nephilim are demons. They're half mortal, half immortal. They have a mortal body, just like me, but they have an immortal intellect, which I don't have. Because if I'm just normal, like Adam, when I die, it's like sleeping. I mean, I lose consciousness. But an ISBE or an alien, when they don't die, first of all, but a Nephilim who has a mortal body and an immortal intellect, when a Nephilim dies, the body dies, but the Nephilim is still, whoa, what's going on? I can't touch the world anymore. They call them demons. So that's the background of what Errol was talking about. Now, the angels, the rebelling angels who were down here controlling the earth, they possess people. But they also take a man like me who dies. Since Errol says I'm an ISBE, they take my intellect away from this unconscious mode and install it in another body, and so then I'm alive again in a mortal body. But then they give me a memory erase so that I don't know who I am, and I start all over again. That's sort of, in a nutshell, what Errol was talking about. And that's relevant to the dream I had, because if I were one of those individuals and I died, somebody took me and put me into a new body, that 1-year-old kid. That's why I brought it up, because that's where it seems to fit. But it really troubles me because I was informed of this stuff. It wasn't through intuition. So I wanted an answer. And the answer comes, a really quick metaphor. It's like if I see a lake with a paddle boat on it, and there's like a bunch of trees in between me and that lake, and I want to get there, because that's where the truth is. There's like this little path that leads there. So as I'm going down the path, I noticed that there's another path that leads off to the right, a less traveled path. And I already know that I'm not going to find truth at the lake following this particular path to that paddle boat. I just know. It's just a metaphor, okay? So I go, I'm going to take this side road here and find out where it goes, because that's going to bring me an answer. That doesn't go along with the World Council of Churches or the humdrum, what everybody tells you something means. And that's the metaphor. So going down that path, you know where it took me? It took me to a book called Jude. And it's only like one chapter in the whole book. So it's really a letter, but it's called Jude 1. And I'm going to read a little bit of it because it's so relevant. Listen, when I gave all diligence to write to you about our common life, he's talking about himself, Jude, and a bunch of church members. It was necessary for me to write to you as I am to persuade you to compete for the faith which was once delivered to the holy ones. So these are not the holy ones. Who are the holy ones? For men have obtained entrance who from the beginning were written with this guilty verdict. Evil men who pervert the grace of our God into an abomination and deny him who is the Lord God, Yeshua The Messiah. Okay, so they're holy ones from a long time ago. I wish to remind you, as you all know, that God, when once he had brought the people from Egypt, afterwards destroyed those who did not believe. And those angels, quote unquote, kept not their principalities, but abandoned their own way of life. He has kept the great day of judgment to unseen chains under darkness, just as in Sadom and Amorah and their surrounding cities, in which, like those, had committed fornication and went after other flesh. See, those Isbies were not supposed to come down to earth and mess with Lilith or any other human. But they did, and that was what was against them. So that's relevant to this, what I'm reading. See, look, it's not that deep. It's just one page on a website. That's what I'm reading, okay? And it's just Jude chapter 1. In likeness, these also lust in their dreams, who defile the flesh, reject lordship, and slander the glory. But Michael the archangel, when he was speaking to the devil about the body of Moses, okay, there's a lot said right there, because Michael the archangel, according to the book of Enoch, is Jesus Christ, before he was Jesus Christ. Excuse me. And the devil is the devil. And they were arguing over Moses, who had died. Why? Okay? That's the path that leads off to the right. I have to take a sip. Why were they arguing over the body of Moses? As you can see, I'm in fine health. Because Moses was a mortal man. He died. And the devil wanted his intellect so that he could then install it in somebody to live another life, see, on earth. And God would not. God, Michael the archangel, said no way. And the devil was not allowed to take Moses' intellect, because in this particular case, God took Moses' intellect and brought him to heaven. This is the case where, when he died, he went to heaven. And Satan didn't get him. So, I'm thinking to myself, Satan is the one who wants to put me in another body, if that's what the dream is all about, not God. Because God only has two destinies for me. One is that I die and I remain asleep, no thoughts being processed, but I just died mortally and I'm resurrected at a later date. The other chosen path is that I die and God takes me right away. I don't know, there's probably more options, but those are two well defined. So that's what God wants for me. So anybody who's trying to warn me about something, that you want this, you don't want that, I think that's coming from the devil in this case. So that's my first attempt at explaining this dream, and I think I took the right path. See you later. 15 minutes.